Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to show you a really good recipe for baked beans. My sister-in-law works on her husband's family's cattle ranch, and this is the recipe that she uses when she has to feed a large group of hungry ranch hands. Since this is such a large recipe and I'm the only one that will eat beans, I have cut the recipe in half just to show you. So here are the ingredients: a can of pork and beans, kidney beans, butter beans, tomato sauce, brown sugar, an onion or a half an onion chopped up, and some thick peppered bacon. That's a half a pound. Here is just a quick tip. If you're unsure of how many servings a recipe is going to make, go ahead and check the labels on the cans or the containers of the ingredients that you're using. Then you can add all of the serving amounts together to get the servings that your recipe will yield. The original recipe of these beans will serve around 30 people. And my sister-in-law will sometimes add an extra can of pork and beans, as she also will drain some of the juice off of her pork and beans, and I didn't do that. Here I am cutting up the bacon, and you can certainly cut it into larger chunks if you prefer that. While the bacon is frying, I start opening the cans of beans and tomato sauce. Drain the butter beans into a colander and then rinse with cold water and let them drain. The bacon is browning nicely in the fry pan. That's a half a pound of bacon. The original recipe calls for a full pound. The original recipe calls for a full onion chopped up, and I used a half of an onion, and I decided to add the onion to the fry pan and fry it up before adding it to the crock pot. I added a little bit of olive oil because the pan was kind of dry. Is there anything better than the smell of onions and bacon cooking? I'm ready now to add the ingredients to the crock pot. So since I am cutting this recipe in half, I add one 28-ounce can of pork and beans, and then a 15.5 ounce can of undrained kidney beans, the 15.5 ounce can of drained butter beans, and the 8 ounce can of tomato sauce. The only way I could wrap my head around figuring out how to cut 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar in half was to add a quarter cup of packed brown sugar, and then pack another quarter cup, measure halfway, and add that to the crock pot. I'm adding the bacon and the onions, and then adding salt and pepper to taste. Since the bacon is peppered bacon, you really don't need to put much pepper. At least I don't think so. You don't need to add much pepper to this. Stir everything well, and then turn the crock pot on high for a couple of hours until it starts to get really hot. And then what my sister-in-law does is that she turns the crock pot off and lets it cool, and she lets it sit for a day or two in the refrigerator, and then when she's ready to serve it, she heats it up. If you prefer to use your oven instead of a crock pot to heat up the beans, you can do that, and I'll leave the instructions for that along with the recipe in the description box. A big thanks and shout out to Chris for sharing her favorite bean recipe with me so that I could share it with you. After the beans I made cooled down, I put them in a Tupperware container and put them in the refrigerator. I heated them up the next day and had them, and they were so good. So I want to just leave you with some pictures that Chris took of the cows and of the food that she prepared for the branding last Saturday. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.